everybody. Welcome to Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States. Today, we're going to have a very important topic we're discussing, which deals with the United States in terms of still manufacturing things. And this is an important conversation in economics because has the United States lost its economic engine in terms of manufacturing? And so with that, I'm going to bring in one of our panelists until the other one joins us shortly, Lee Newton Rhodes, who you may have seen from the World Edition. Lee, welcome to Economics.
Good morning, Nick. You used the word lost. Are you sure that wasn't a misspeak? Because I don't think we lost it. We've given it away intentionally.
Give it away or losing it, depending on how you want to look at it. But the fact is, we have a real problem manufacturing things in the United States, anything.
Very problem.
This came out to me yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. There was a big article about Craftsman and Black & Decker that manufacture tools, which everybody knows when you go to any Home Depot, you'll see Craftsman tools. They're everywhere. And what happens, they spent nearly $100 million developing a plant to manufacture Craftsman's tool using the highest end robotic technology to do all the work, okay? And all that sounds good until you find out that they had to close the factory after 3 years and hardly making anything. In other words, all of a sudden, it was shut down.
Because?
They didn't really say because. Everybody had no comment. Shaquille Latmer is going to be joining us also from Australia. But this is a real problem. In other words, in China, they have a lot of manufacturing. In other words, they thrive on being the producer of the world. But in the United States, what's happening to our manufacturing base? In North Carolina, where I live, when I came here, this used to be a big furniture manufacturing place, Thomasville. They had
well known.
Right, Thomasville, Henderson, all these places that they built chairs, they built desks, they built furniture. Okay, that entire industry has been demolished. Where cities around the United States, the small towns around North Carolina, all the people are out of work. They're basically busted as the manufacturing of chairs, tables, everything just moved over to China. And more important, and just as important, if you go look at your clothes, like I have shirts, etc., none's made in the United States. It's made in Bangladesh, made in India, made in, made in everywhere, Malaysia, Vietnam. But nothing is made in the United States. So the real question is, what's happening to the manufacturing base in the United States? Now, I know that Shaquille's over in Australia, so he doesn't give a rat's for what happens over here. But maybe the same phenomenon's happening in Australia, that you guys aren't manufacturing anything. Everything's being made in China, or they're made in Vietnam, or they're made in India. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Shaquille?
Well, I think this is a result in the Western world of a number of factors. So for Australia, we have a similar problem, sort of a Dutch type problem, where because we have such a strong mining and resources sector, we actually do see higher wages coming from those areas. And so we lose our manufacturing sector. But it also comes down, I think, across the world and places like the United States to, I think, competing interests, both of whom have not really achieved what they would have hoped, I think. So on the one hand, you've got unions who say, look, these companies are making a lot of money. We want employees to, have better working conditions. We want them to have higher wages. We want them to have, higher levels of benefits like healthcare. We want there to be safe work conditions, that sort of thing. Perfectly reasonable for that to be something that's asked for. On the flip side of that coin, you have businesses that say, okay, we are adhering to these higher wage conditions, we are adhering to these higher wages, etc. But overseas companies in other countries are perhaps not doing that. In some cases, we found major companies who have employed child labour, things that just wouldn't be allowed under our labour laws. And they're able to manufacture these goods at a much cheaper price than we can. And then they're actually able to come in and undercut us on price. Now, my favorite economist, Milton Friedman, said, well, if those people are prepared to accept that, then that should be good because that's how they compete with us. So we should be able to let the consumers be able to buy their goods at whatever cheapest price that they can possibly find. The problem with that, of course, is that you've required companies in the United States or in Australia or in the UK, you've required those companies to have certain conditions that make them uncompetitive internationally. And then when they can't compete, they're driven out of business. So what's the solution? Well, one of the solutions has been tariffs. One of the solutions has been to take other type of protective measures. So Australia did that with its car industry for a long time. But ultimately what that leads to is higher prices for consumers. And people say, why are these big businesses existing when they're sucking on the teat of the government purse, that they're living off of the taxpayer? Is that what we want? And so you have these competing interests, and I think the countries have to decide what they're going to do. But it also brings up another very important point. There are a lot of countries, as I'm sure Sharif will be able to attest to, that the currencies are a lot cheaper, the GDP of the countries is a lot lower. What happens if we say to those countries, we're not going to allow you to compete with us, we're not going to buy from you? How do those countries and the citizens in those countries improve their lives if we take that stand? So I think that there is a very difficult balancing act that we need to have, but I also think that it's incredibly important that we maintain some manufacturing capacity in our own countries. And that really applies across the board. Pharmaceuticals is another one where we see that everything that's not under current patent or exclusivity by one particular manufacturer, all the off-label or the generic drugs are manufactured in cheaper countries like India and China. We're seeing that with the manufacturing of clothing. We're seeing that with the manufacturing of a whole heap of other items. What do we do? And let's remember that China, who's normally, the complaint is about China because of how big their economy is and how big a country they are. But what do we do? Do we want to turn around and say to China, okay, we're not going to trade with you anymore. We're not going to buy your goods. We're going to manufacture them all ourselves. China was, a very poor country, especially after World War II. We had an obligation to help China try to improve its conditions. So I think, I think that balancing all of this is really complicated. I'm not sure I know what the solutions are, but I think that this kind of, this sort of, we don't want imported goods, or we just want to protect our own industries and buy locally. The fact of the matter is that most consumers are not going to pay extra to buy locally.
Yeah, it seems that way. And so we're going to bring in somebody from Bangladesh and also Malaysia, who knows a little bit about the fact that you guys are taking our industries and moving them over there, Dr. Sharif, because when I go to the stores and I look at shirts, they're all made in Bangladesh. They're all made in Malaysia. They're not made in the United States of America. So since you're over there, tell me what's going on. You're taking all of our juice over there, okay, right, Dr. Sharif?
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I want to give special thanks to the American people, those who are supporting our economy, because definitely we have cheap labor. We have labor, this cost is low, but definitely their quality of production is very high. That's why American business organizations, they are actually taking the garments product from Bangladesh. But I want to be more productive. I want to be more enthusiastic and positive. If you focus on the different countries, different geographical issues, you can find Bangladesh. We have GI products, geographical based products. Let's say we have garments industry, that is good. On the other hand, we have Jamdani. It's a shari for women. I'm doing business with Japan, the B Lab. I'm doing this research and helping them to grow the business in Japan. We have different kind of traditional business, different handicraft, different clothes, different agricultural products. I believe that we are closely working with different university business incubations. Uh, Perhaps this is one of the largest business incubations around the world because we bring around few million people under these business incubations. So what I'm trying to do, beside these techno progressive thoughts, the local business, the local community, the grassroots level community business and their concept, we are bringing together. We provide them the high quality training and we help them to grow the business and they make progress. That's why the last sessions I told you that emerging economy has a lot of problem and we have the ability to solve this emerging economy problem if you come together as an entrepreneurs. Like if you see the Asia Pacific market, let's say China or Malaysia or this region, because long time I stay there, I know this market is very close. On the other hand, country like India, I'm sure that India will be one of the largest economy in between 25 years. On the other hand, country like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and many more things, we have to engage with these things. And most important thing is that traditional business has a very, very good opportunities and we can grow together. Let's say, Mr. Nick Palvet, I have a question for you. Do you like fish?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Nick? Sure.
Yeah.
What type of fish you like?
Halibut, salmon.
What type of fish you like?
It's all good. Halibut and salmon.
Oh, okay. Okay, excellent. Have you ever tried Hilsha fish?
What?
Hilsha fish? Hilsha.
No.
Okay. I can give you guarantee. Hilsha fish is one of the tasty fish around the world. Around the world. So what we are trying, I want to invite you in Bangladesh, all of you. We will organize a very special program with you for a dinners. And I'm sure if you eat Hilsha, it's mind blowing. So every country has different story in the business. Let's say I know that maybe many American likes mango, but in Rajshahi, in Bangladesh, Rajshahi is a specific place where we develop business incubations. But what I'm trying to do, they have a very, very good, it's called mango. I was in Europe, I was in Asia Pacific, many more countries. But its taste is very good because of land, because of natural things. So actually we have to do more research. The corporation has to engage with more things. But what naturally corporation do, especially food industry or traditional industry, they just come, they just want to like take over all of the economy and they want to introduce something which is not helpful. So I believe that this kind of small medium enterprise, this kind of traditional business, this kind of interesting things we need to bring to the global market. And Pod TV can play a major role. I can bring all of the interesting history or story or things for your Pod TV. Many more people, I think that they can understand about different things. Let's say, so the major thing is that we have to understand each other. We have to know for each other. Even I read many American books. I do not find it's actually fulfill all of the requirements of knowledge because many things is not integrated in this. Let's say Philip Kotler books. I do not want to criticize. He is very famous professor. But in his books, what we understand, we only understand about KFC, understand about American company. But there are many emerging economies, companies and the countries and the activities you can bring as a case study for your students. So that's why we are taking responsibility of these business incubations, business incubation now, and we are engaged with few million people. And Pod TV can be our partners. And through this process, I can ensure you what CNN cannot do, you can do. What BBC cannot do, you can do. What Harvard cannot do, you can do. That is the beauty of emerging economy.
Mm-hmm.
So trust me, the world is beautiful. Why people run behind why people run behind unproductive investment, why people are wasting their time. Some point I become astronomist. So Professor Nick Palveda, you have a big opportunity to be a global leaders and grow together.
Okay. Well, the real problem I have is, Sharif, how can we compete against Bangladesh? You guys work at a lower rate than they do here in the United States. And I'll throw this with Lee Newton Rhodes. And I'm a businessman. Why wouldn't I move my manufacturing over to Bangladesh? Why would I keep it here?
Well, I think the bigger issue is caused by people like myself. Actually, I'll take some responsibility for this one. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to a business in the United States, why don't you shut down your operations altogether, sell the business off, and we'll invest the money for you. And what you end up seeing, and it's a big problem now, the Bank of International Settlements has talked about it in the West, the Federal Reserve has talked about it in the United States. One of the big problems is that we're seeing a massive underinvestment in productive assets in Western countries. And what that leads to is this phenomenon where there's a lot of money around. That money is predominantly being invested into sort of passive income streams or into bonds and all those types of instruments. So there's profits coming back, but there's not a lot of economic activity, and that divide between the rich and the poor becomes a lot more pronounced because the wealthy aren't having to actively produce in order to maintain their lifestyles or to earn an income. The poorer people are looking for jobs, and a lot of those have been shipped overseas. That's a huge problem that we're seeing. The question is, how do we get some of that investment money into productive assets locally? I don't think it's a question of how do we compete with countries like Bangladesh. It's a question of how do we actually attract and divert the investment funds where we think they'd be best served. You're muted, Nick.
Okay. I have something to share with.
Go on, Dr. Sharif.
Okay. Let's say, do you have any pen or anything in front of you, Professor Nick?
Yeah, it's all made in Bangladesh. Let's say I got a comb. It's made in Bangladesh.
Any small things you have?
It's made in Bangladesh. Everything I have here is made in Bangladesh.
Anything. Let's say. Can I see your Coke can? Can I see your Coke can? Professor, can I see your Coke can?
Yeah.
Is it Coke can, right? You love?
Yeah, it is.
Coke? Okay, very good. Second thing, are you billionaires? Give us a answer. Are you billionaires, or what's your plan? You want to be billionaires?
Well, my plan was to toss this to Lee Newton Rhodes to figure out, okay, how can you compete against Bangladesh? I mean, what is the United States going to do?
It's all about people. It's all
Dr.
about
Sharif
people.
makes all of our shirts. He makes all of our textiles. He makes my office furniture. He makes everything. In the U.S.,
Professor, let's say, Professor, in Asia Pacific, we have 2.5 billion people. Even if you can produce a mobile phone, you become billionaires. It's fast. I was in Singapore, I was in Malaysia, or Europe, or whatever it is. They are not so fast. Their consumption rate is very high. It's easy. Even language, let's say 340 million people speak in one language, Bangla. 340 million people. In Singapore, very small country. 5 different languages. Oh my God. Very small place. But all of the Western people say, hey, I respect Singapore. I love Singapore. But all of the Western people, Singapore this, Singapore that. But how many consumers they have? Maybe like 1 million, whatever it is. Okay. So things is that here is a consumer. This is the future. And they are all of the people are young. And beside that, business is one thing. Second things like taking responsibility, what we call leadership. You are taking responsibility and you are uplifting people. When you are uplifting people, it's a bigger than like winning a Nobel Prize, right? You are solving 10 million people's lives. It's possible. 1 million people's lives. Maybe you solve their water problem. You give them drinking water. So everybody gonna remember you that Professor Nick solved water problem of Chittagong, right? So business has great values, great motive. Like doing business in Singapore or USA may be easy, but when you uplifting a community, it's very hard, it's very difficult, and it's very meaningful. That is the things I'm doing. That is the things
So,
are
Sharif,
very tough.
in relation to
But I'm very
in relation
happy
to
now.
Singapore,
Yeah.
in relation to Singapore, you are correct that when it comes to setting up manufacturing operations and those types of things, going to emerging markets is a great way to be able to get access to a workforce at relatively low cost. There is a little bit more bureaucracy involved in some of those places, but it's a good place to go. But the reason why you see so many people in the West, like myself, invest through Singapore, Dubai, Ireland, a number of other countries like that, is because we're not looking for manufacturing. What we're looking for is tax efficiency and licensing efficiency. If I want to set up a hedge fund, I'm going to go to Liechtenstein, I'm going to go to the Cayman Islands, Dubai, Singapore. Those are the places that I'm going to go to first. And it's because I can do things there much more quickly, much more easily, and without as much government interference as I would if I stayed onshore in some of our Western countries. But if I was looking for manufacturing, I'm not going to set up in Singapore for the same reason I wouldn't set up in the US.
Okay. Okay. Do you visit Bangladesh?
I have not yet been to Bangladesh, no.
Mr. Holmes
I
did
have
not
not
visit
been.
Bangladesh.
Holmes went there. I didn't come with him.
Okay, he visit, let's say, Mireshorai. He visit with his friend, like Bay of Bengal and Mireshorai, everything he visit. I can give you guarantee because I have experience from the first world and from the developing world. I'm not trying to sell in my country because now it's an overflow. World Bank investing, ADB investing, JICA investing. In Mireshorai, you can ask Mr. Holmes how many companies come. And I can give you guarantee what are the policy you are talking about, whatever the benefit you are talking about. Bangladesh or India has same kind of benefit, but it's it's underrated because of media. Media always talking about, let's say, BBC, CNN. This is Singapore beauty. This is this. This is that. That's why many people know about that. But I want to welcome TV like Pot TV to brand our history, to bring our history to the front line. Let's say we have business association. I can introduce to you. Even actually, I have a conference with the Garments Owner Association. That's time I'm actually looking at Mr. Nick Palveda. So things is that it's a lack of knowledge about emerging economy. Emerging economy always good. If you want to grow fast, example, you will grow very fast. And I always say, let's say Mr. Nick Palveda want to produce mobile phone. One shot, billion people, right? Just 3 hours of journey, you will get 2.5 billion people. And it's not like China, or I know that China is very restricted policy-wise and business-wise. Malaysia is very restricted. They have Bhumiputra law. Without Bhumiputra, like local people, you cannot do anything. But a country like this kind of country is very open. But definitely, we have to focus on research and innovations. We need your expertise. You can share your expertise. And what experience we have, we can share with you. And we need more awareness campaign, more media discussions. Media is extremely powerful. Because of Mr. Nick Palveda, I learned he's my mentor. I respect him a lot because he at least he give me the guideline how to engage with the communities. So yeah, now I can say that 3 years before I said that I can bring million people. I'm for millions of people. I did it. And I can give you the guarantee in between 3 years, I will bring billions of people. And I will did it. And definitely we will celebrate together. I think 3 years before I commit to Mr. Nick Palveda, so I will definitely respect him. But we have to work as a team. Let's say, Madam Kimberly, if you have cyber security, share with us. If you have robotics engineering, share with us. If you have mobile money transferring or banking system, share with us. That is the things we have to exchange. I have good handmade products. I want to share with you. So that's why I want to say this Monday, this session should be more productive, more thought-provoking, more interesting. Let's say, Madam Kimberly, you can come and join with me. You can train 10,000 women in Bangladesh or in India. We have. You uplift the woman. You can train. You can discuss with our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, or you can discuss with our let's say East Bengal prime ministers. So this way we can grow we can. But what the proposal we have to share. But I always say people always stuck in a problem. They are not looking for solutions. But I like Mr. Homestoner approach. He is action oriented. He take actions and he move fast. And I believe that Pod TV can be a revolutionary project if they can engage with our grassroots level people, our emerging markets, our people. And trust me, if you can produce even one specific product, easily you can be billionaires. It's easier than China, it's easier than USA, it's easier than Europe because of our population. Thank you.
Well, he's done a great job selling Bangladesh, over all these other places.
No,
As a matter of fact,
that was my fault. Hey, Dr. Sharif, it's Mark over here, your good friend. I've got a question for you. What are you doing? Because I know you're doing some work for the young people and everything. Because I've got my other good buddy down at the bottom of the ticket, Jatobi, who's very involved in the esport and gaming community. So, what are you doing in that realm, and what are you thinking you can do in that realm? Because Jatobi is very much in the gaming and esports lane. So, love to hear your thoughts about what y'all are doing with the young people, and particularly around technology and gaming.
Okay. First thing first, when I come back to my country, I bring a partners. I bring a way group of companies. I think Mr. Homestone will also meet with the managing director of the company. Then I collaborate with university grant commissions. So University Grant Commission, we have 105 universities. So these 105 universities, there are many students, right? Many people around Bangladesh as well as India. They have a very good relations around the world, and they are getting supported by World Bank and ADB. So I get a specific projects. Then I engage with these big universities. We have big infrastructure like business incubations, all of the Western world facilities. You can come, you can visit, and you can find. We have everything. Then we bring more people, more unemployed people, more entrepreneurs. And my objective is to uplift. We have village, like 68,000 villages we have. So we are working for decentralizations. We are developing different villages. We are helping the grassroots level people, because the elite group of people I'm not targeting, because they do not need me. They have money, they have good, better educations, they can ride the way, they can go to USA, they can go to Canada, they can go to Singapore or London. They do not need me. But my remote area people, they need me. So last 7 months, I can say that I train more than 10,000 entrepreneurs with my team. And these entrepreneurs, financially now they are successful. Even I can say that at least 600 entrepreneurs from my business incubations, they make minimum $20,000 per month. For Bangladesh, it's a good money, very good amount of money. So then the government and the other agency, everybody joining with me because of my success. So 3 years before I commit that I can bring millions of people. So now we have million people. We need smart people like you. We have hungry people. I always say when smart people and hungry people work together, they can do revolutions. So I have hungry people and you people are smart. So let's work together. Let's make something, not only talk, take action. Then people going to
Sharif, you'll be pleased to know that
people going to cooperate.
Sharif, you'll be pleased to know that as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, I've just invited the chairman that you've been talking about. I've told him to come on in. He's on Fifth Avenue in New York. Holmes, welcome to the show.
Holmes, what are you doing on Fifth Avenue in New York?
I'm on 57th and 5th.
I would know exactly where you are. Right, near the Wellington Hotel.
Yeah, I'm staying across the street from the peninsula.
Mr. Home, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, my son?
He's been talking about Bangladesh.
I'm fine, Daddy. Mr. Home, what's your experience?
Yeah, talk to us about Bangladesh.
Yeah, Mr. Home, what's your experience in Miresharai, about this Bay of Bengal, about this
huge
Dhaka
opportunities,
University, about Prime Minister office? What's your experience?
Well, it's a young country and it's full of potential. It is geographically perfect as far as South Asia is concerned. It's a land of 120 rivers, so it's a river country. Natural resources in every direction, every kind of natural resource you can even imagine. And people there are kind and very accommodating. And thank you, Sharif, for being so kind and accommodating for us.
The library line. Oh my God.
It was a special experience for me.
I think he's frozen up for a moment there, Holmes. So
No,
Sharif, for you.
Sharif,
It was a very-
you're
It was very special experience for me because I hadn't been in that part of Asia before, and I was pleasantly surprised.
really
Opportunities.
Holmes. Important thing is the food good there? That's
Oh,
the-
I ate like a
Party stick.
I ate like a prince.
okay. All right.
And you know me, I like to eat.
Right. Okay. I mean, if you have good food, it makes all the difference in the world.
We are-
Sounds like it's a
Well-
good place to go. Hey, Holmes, just really quickly, what do you think the opportunities are there for young people? Because, like I said, Jatobi has got that esports thing and definitely does a lot of stuff in that kind of lane, and he's here on the call as well. So, what do you think the opportunities would be for folks that are looking at businesses that are youth oriented? And Jatobi can tell you more about esports
Well,
and gaming than I could ever think of.
Well, I can tell you one thing. There are 200 million people living in that country the size of Iowa. Okay. The average age in that country is 35. So, if anything, there's a river or a sea full of young people with great ideas, English speaking, well educated, and on fire. Their GDP is growing faster than any other country in the region. I'd say that all the right reasons are there for people there to go cultivate relationships and businesses in that part of the world.
So, Holmes, I've made my comments on what some of the issues are in relation to manufacturing in Australia, the United States, and other countries. And I've talked about the lower costs elsewhere, sometimes lower levels of bureaucracy, and those sorts of things. And I've said that it's very difficult to get this right because if we put tariffs on those countries, then we're not giving them the opportunity to improve their lives. If we put tariffs on them, we're driving up the price for consumers, or we have to subsidise the cost of big businesses. What do you think about manufacturing in Western countries? What do we need to do to keep our countries competitive as well in this globalised marketplace?
Well, manufacturing in that part of the world is what these big companies like, especially automotive, and today's world of automotive and computer sciences, they would be the ones that would benefit because these people are very computer savvy. They're very, as I said, they're English language speaking, and willing to learn and train and to be state of the art. I'd say that is the newest destination for large scale manufacturing would be in that region, especially
So
there in Bangladesh.
So that's good for them. But what do we do? You and I have travelled to many formerly great little towns across rural United States. We've spoken to mayors, we've spoken to local councils. What do those rural places in the United States do? Do they just give up and move on to something else, or is there some future that you can see for
Well,
them?
the problem we have with the American workforce is they refuse to retrain in another area. They want to continue doing what they've been doing for the last 100 years, and those industries have moved on. The United States has all of the ability in the world to retrain people in the prevailing industries like telemedicine and gerontology and biomedicine and all of the trending new industries, environmental, green industries. Instead of moving into those areas, they want to continue to make auto parts, and that's not going to happen. these industries have moved on, and they make their case, and they make their machines in places where they can have the youngest and the cheapest labor, and they're going to go and continue doing that. If they move out of China, they'll go to Vietnam. If they go out of Vietnam, they'll go to Bangladesh. They're going to where the labor pool that fits their needs.
Hey, Holmes, what do you say to those industries? Because some of those new industries are actually so new that people are threatened by them. I'm thinking about the metaverse. I'm thinking about crypto. I'm thinking about a number of other things. So I was just wondering, what is your thoughts around that? Because some of the newer industries, people are afraid to tackle them because they are afraid that they, one, don't have the understanding, or two, they are afraid that they are shams. I am not one to believe that, but that is what some people believe. But I would love to hear your thoughts around that, Holmes.
Well, we have a new phenomena, which is the AI thing, and because the AI thing is so threatening, particularly to the Hollywood situation, where now they're on strike because the writers feel that they're going to be replaced, and now the actors feel like they're being replaced. So there is a challenge there. I was seeing an article this morning where they say, "Oh no, it's not a challenge. It's not a it is a challenge." Because you've got literally millions of people involved in that industry that half of them could be phased out very easily. And we have to learn how to build in these high-tech industries into everyday people, and how it becomes more convenient than a challenge. But right now, people are scared because particularly in self-driving trucks and cars, because they're eliminate drivers. That's another 800,000 people.
It looks like Sharif has something to show us here. What is this, Dr. Sharif?
Yeah. This is, I think, Mr. Home Stoner. He visited Chittagong. So this is my Chittagong business incubation. It's called CHUET. We have 5,000 engineers. They are very high quality engineers, and this is our business incubations. And we can give support around 2,000 entrepreneurs in this ecosystem. So it's very advanced. It's had very high quality facilities. And Mr. Holmes, I want to give good news for you and for IBM TV. Our government, they agree with me. They will give Pacific Prime Business Council as well as Port TV, let's say 2-year subsidy. You can utilize our office. You can operate in Chittagong. You can make your business, or you can continue the business. So we want to welcome you all. This is one of my business incubations. I have 4 different business incubation right now under the agreement of World Talent Economy Forum. So those who want to really do business, you want to innovate, you want to solve problem. Most importantly, you need vision. Like Mr. Home Stoner, he is extremely good leader. Our Honorable Prime Minister's office like him so much because of his approach for emerging economy. So we need good leaders. Those who want to contribute for our country, you can come and join and work with us. I want to welcome everyone.
Well, we went to the Bay of Bengal, which I never knew was so historical. But the Portuguese were down there trading for spices back in the 1400s. And when we went there, and it's right outside of Chittagong, there must have been at least 1,000 ships out there loading and unloading goods from all over the world. In fact, in World War II, when the Americans wanted to attack the Japanese, they had to go to the Bay of Bengal to come in the back door into China. So it's strategically and geographically very, very important part of the world, but it doesn't get enough attention because of the fact that it's almost looked at as being West Pakistan in a lot of ways. But that part of the world is where the future is. There are basically 2.5 billion people living south of the equator down there that are all English-speaking, well-educated, and young. That is the new market, the new world. And the more people start realizing that, and realizing that only 5/8 of the world lives north of the equator, and they're not growing. They're not having families, they're not having children, and they're not growing. This is the future. And I think that a lot of people should start paying very close attention to the future, because this is where it is. This is the spawning ground of civilization in the 21st century. At least in my estimation, it is.
Well, it seems to me that we have to go to Bangladesh, Dr. Sharif. You know,
You really ought to go there and see the place. I mean, it will blow your mind, because it's not what you think it is. You have to see it.
I was in Morocco a couple months ago, and it's definitely not what you think it is. It's a very cosmopolitan, pretty great country. You know,
great country.
Yeah, and over here we just don't know much about Morocco, but it's just a great place to go to.
Let's just face it.
Yeah,
40%, only 40% of Americans even have a passport. Okay, so we don't know international at all.
Yeah. Yeah, although we see the demographic shift changing, they said more passports, 2 million more passports were issued this year than any other time. So a lot of people are starting to travel internationally. So I think you're going to see a demographic shift.
That's a little bit misleading, because there was a reduction in the amount of passports applied for during COVID.
Right.
So
that's correct. Right.
Because of the catch up on those.
Yeah, but also you know, though, until this year, flying internationally is pretty inexpensive to kill. You know, so you could, because of the economy fares, you can go across the pond for a couple $100. I mean, it's.
I've never flown economy, so I wouldn't know, Nick.
Yeah, they've made it very economical. But
He doesn't even fly commercial, so don't even go there with him.
No, I do.
Hey, hold on a second.
He took a trip.
Professor-
He took a trip to Qatar
Hey,
that I would never.
hold on a second.
Professor,
I do have to tease both.
Professor Nick,
Yeah. So when am I supposed to go over there, Sharif?
Yeah, you got to come over there.
Yes.
You're supposed to be over there tomorrow, Nick.
yes,
You know,
we will
tomorrow.
we will
You got to
invite
be there
you.
tomorrow.
We are organizing.
What are you organizing?
we are organizing largest event, and Professor Nick Palveda, I want to hear from Madam Kimberly, because Bangladeshi Prime Minister's woman, East Bengal Mukhyamantri, what we call Chief Minister women. So women are changing this world. So what's the view of Madam Kimberly? What you want to share? What's your message for our women leaders?
It's interesting. I had this conversation with some people over the weekend, and it was brought to my attention that in history, you know, through time, the cultures that were operated or led by women survived far greater than the ones who were created by men or led.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, and I feel like that philosophy continues, because we've seen that in other countries where women have taken leadership roles. I think that it just needs to be a team. I don't think that it's any one particular gender. I think it's just the human and the human essence and the humanity that we bring with it, that we need to understand each other. We need to support each other. We need to be a team. And that takes a very strong individual to lead a group of people, or even a country, a city, a community. It takes a lot to lead where we unite. And in many cases, you're going to get a lot of resistance. And it takes an even stronger person to lead through that resistance. But you have to believe in your convictions. You have to believe in what you have built and where you are going. And I think that that is for anyone, not just a woman. And I think that that's where any of our success is going to rise out of these ashes that we have right now, of the economy and of the ecosystem that is struggling again, which I don't quite understand, because we learned through COVID, when we shut everything down, everything got clean. You know, that you could see the sky in countries you never could see the sky and stars in. And all of a sudden we get back to what we call normal. and now we can't see anything, and the heat is killing us. It's drying up certain areas of the world. So I think we need to really reevaluate what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, put it into perspective of what is important to us and how we regain what was good versus what was not, and just move forward. And I think that's anyone, not just woman.
You know, this seems to me a very positive, upbeat conversation we're having, Dr. Sharif. So I figured next time we need to invite President Putin, because he can change the whole composition of our TV show. he can bring a different viewpoint to everything.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't even want to.
No, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. Hey, Holmes and Shaquille and everybody else on the panel, I do have a quick question and everything, because y'all brought up something that I find very interesting, but I'd love to hear Shaquille take on this, which is that oftentimes, even in our own societies, we don't oftentimes know the jewels that we have, because you're talking about the jewels that you saw around Bangladesh and around the other places you visited. I know Shaquille had said something very similar, but I was just talking to a friend of mine that literally stumbled on some treasures involving slave museums and involving history, including a George Washington museum that I think was tied to the Masons, meaning like the Masons that are connected to the Shriners, that they found in the DC area that they didn't know existed in there, but they were having to do some weekends travels and stumbled across those. So I think that too often we don't see our own treasures even in our own cities. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about that.
Well, I believe America has to rediscover itself.
Right.
I think America, between us, I think America. It's time for America to rebuild itself from the inside out. And go back to the core of how this country started. It started with the little guy. The Revolutionary War was just a bunch of farmers who had enough, and they basically revolutionized how this country was run. I think we got to do that again, because Americans have gotten so intransigent. They've gotten to the point where they've become so lackadaisical and arrogant about they're the best. When we've basically, all of these other countries have been educated in our country, and we have educated them with the best education available on the earth. So they went back to their country and used and employed the knowledge that we gave them, and they're the same as us in a lot of ways right now. And we have to reinvent America. We have to come back to the core and figure out how we're going to reinvent this country. Because what we basically are is we've educated people around the world to the point where we don't have as much of the edge as we've had before. And they all feel that way too. Other countries feel the same way.
Yeah, but Holmes, don't we have a problem that we're seeing this "not made in the USA" sign? As a matter of fact, every time I go into Nordstrom, I go into Macy's, I see the shirts, and they're all made in Bangladesh. You know, and they're not cheap shirts. These are very expensive, high quality, great.
Yeah, because it's the material. It's not the labor. It's the material being used. It's the product being used, and the cost of logistics of shipping. I mean, there are a lot of variable costs that go into that, but the labor is getting paid nothing. The labor. What is Sharif? What is an average clothing worker in Dhaka making a month?
Sharif, could you hear the question?
It's about maximum $200 per month.
About $200 a month. Okay.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. And they work in squalid conditions. They work in crowded conditions, and they're making $200 a month, and they're happy to have the job.
What
And,
is the cost of living for these workers and employees?
very low, very, very low.
That's good, though. At least the cost of living and ability to sustain
Kim,
Let
is.
me come in on this.
Hold on a second. I'm going to toss it to you, Shaquille. But one of the things I saw was talked to a friend of mine online. It was from Panama. I think she was from Panama, Peru, one of the South American countries. But she said she didn't know she was poor until she actually came to the United States because she didn't have shoes to get to school. She didn't have a number of other things, and that was her norm. So she didn't really think about it until she came here to the United States when she moved to Los Angeles. And then she had a different perspective because of that. And this is what I'm going to talk to you, Shaquille, this perception that the roads were golden here. So she thought that the roads were golden and found out that there were troubles here just as much as there are in other places. But your thoughts around that? And the lady was from Peru. Now that I think about it, I said Peru or Panama, but it was Peru.
Well, Jacoby made the comment before, and I believe on a previous show, about how America sells itself. All the rappers are, driving these cars and have got this diamond bling on, and they're all, living in these mansions, and that ends up becoming an exception. Not just rappers, actors, all the Hollywood movies, all of that ends up becoming the perception. But I just want to come back to the economic issue that was brought up. So the issue with wages is a very interesting one. The average wage in the United States is around $70,000 at the moment. It's gone up quite significantly. When you add on things like payroll taxes, sick pay, all those types of benefits, you're probably going to end up not getting much change out of $100,000 for a worker in the US. Now, with average wages in places like Bangladesh and in Africa being around $2,000, $2,500 a year, the question is this: would you rather employ 2 or 3 people in America or 100 staff in places like Bangladesh? What do you think is going to be, what do you think is going to give you the most amount of bang for your buck? Even if there was less efficient workers in those countries, 100 of them is certainly going to be able to do more work than 3 people would in Australia or the US or Canada. But I had this conversation with Holmes as we were flying from North Carolina across to Los Angeles, and I was telling him about all the opportunities that I saw. And I would say that, one, I wish that people in America would see the United States through my eyes and stop being so caught up on domestic policy issues and differences between people. The second thing is I wish the government would get out of the way. One of the saddest things that I saw was when Holmes and I were discussing something, I won't name the state, I won't name the governor, but we were discussing something, and I had talked about something that I would like to do that would have created jobs in that particular area. And I was concerned because I had read some of the rules in that state, and it didn't look like we'd be able to do that as easily. And the governor of that state said, "That's not a problem, we'll give you an exemption." And that's such a significant problem when it comes to bureaucracy in the United States, is that to attract foreign investment, you're prepared to give foreigners exemptions from your laws, but Americans who want to start that company can't do so. The other thing I will say is that I think America and Australia and other Western countries sell themselves short when it comes to manufacturing. Whilst the costs can be higher, there are many places in the world that will pay extra for that Made in America stamp or that Made in Australia stamp and that sort of thing. A lot of our designer label clothes have that Made in Milan shirt, Made in Milan stamp, and I can tell you, it's not cheap to manufacture in Milan. So
if you look behind me, you'll see the All-American building, the Empire State Building behind me. If you see that.
We can see it.
I'm on the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. So here you are, the heart of capitalism of America, and not nearly as many people walking up and down the streets as there used to be here. I've been here many, many times, and I've never seen such a sparse audience. So it's not nearly as hustle bustle as it used to be.
There's some domestic reasons for that. You should pop back over to Times Square again, have a look. But I'll just say, in relation to that stamp, there are countries that are prepared to pay extra. There are people that are prepared to pay extra to see that stamp on something, and you're not selling it.
I agree with you, Holmes.
An example that I used a couple of years ago was that Australia wanted to buy some of your cars, like the Cadillac, for example. We'd really like to buy it. But your manufacturer in the United States won't do little tiny things like changing the indicator lamps to yellow or to orange, like we have amber, like we have in Australia. And the idea that they might sell 10,000 units into Australia, but they're going to have to create a right-hand drive instead of a left-hand drive, they're not going to do it. So there's a whole heap of opportunities America has, but they just don't want to do it.
Shaq, just because I completely agree with your point about the cost is what's driving. I mean, I think we all agree with that. The cost is what drives a lot. is that what you're talking about dealing with cost? Is that also, and that's why they're not wanting to do it, or is it more so that they aren't equipped to do it? Or I mean,
look, I think it's a combination of bureaucracy and cost. Ease of business is a significant thing that people have to worry about. So I think that those things play into each other. But I also think that there's a tendency for American companies to think about the profits they're going to make domestically without actually thinking about what can we get if we sell this product overseas? Can we attach our Made in America stamp to something and have that product achieve a premium price elsewhere? Most other countries are actually looking at how they can sell their goods internationally. The United States does tend to be a much more inward-looking country when it comes to the opportunities because, as Nick rightly points out, already the biggest economy, so companies really focus on America rather than focusing on exporting to other very big markets.
Speaking from the game industry itself, specifically, and I don't know if this bleeds out into other actual markets as well. One of the biggest problems for the U.S. companies, and it's not that they aren't trying to market to these other nations, especially in the gaming industry, they try their best. But for example, the reason PlayStation dominates the market more so than Xbox, even though the Xbox has higher specific or higher specifications within the actual product, better than the actual PlayStation itself. The reason that the Xbox or Microsoft has a problem is because they cannot crack through the Japanese or the Chinese market, just because there is that country. Japanese companies flock to Japanese companies in the gaming industry. So Chinese companies or Eastern companies will flock towards these companies. So you'll get these giant exclusives coming out of Japan that are phenomenal games that people want to play and people want to buy. Same thing with the employees that people want to work with, but they work with these Japanese-born companies and work with mainly Sony rather than Microsoft because of the country pride, or I'm not sure what exactly ties to it, but they don't, as much as Microsoft tries, they cannot crack the market. And that's the way it's always happened for all the different companies that have tried to crack that market.
And with that, we're going to have to end because we're at the hour. We do want to thank our international panel from around the world talking about economics with the Honorable David Walker, who was on a flight, probably to Bangladesh. And we'll see you next week on economics with the Honorable David M. Walker. Take care and have a good week. Bye-bye.